If you want to fill your calendar with dream clients and not need to worry about where your next job will come from, then you should really consider making getting featured and published an emphasis in your business. It's really not as hard as you might think, and today I'm sharing my 7 top tips along with a free submission tracker that I use in my own business to help systemize the submission process and make it super easy. Now, if you're new to my channel, I'm Chelsea Nicole, and I share weekly tutorials, tips, and business and marketing strategies for photographers, helping you improve your craft while building a wildly profitable business. Consider subscribing and tap that little button below to stay in the loop for future videos. I'm excited about today's topic because it's something that's been really a major game changer for me personally in my business. When I was first getting started, I didn't have relationships with high-end vendors or planners. I didn't really have money for advertising or bridal shows. And to be honest, I really never liked that sort of traditional marketing anyway. I like to stand out, and I really wanted to be unique in my field. And I feel like if you're lumped together with a bunch of other photographers, you all end up competing based on price. And I really did not want to compete based on being the lowest priced photographer. So I knew I needed to get myself out there to brides, but I wanted to do it in a different way. And I also knew that my favorite brides that I really wanted to attract were hanging out and getting their inspiration from wedding blogs. So in the beginning, that was my strategy, and I built almost my entire business based on features, including getting featured on many of the top online wedding blogs and magazines. So this is a cover feature of one of my brides, Celeste, and I have to say that there's really nothing quite like getting your work featured in print, and it's also so fun for our brides and grooms, giving them sort of like bragging rights and allowing them to celebrate their wedding in a totally like unique and awesome way. Over time, I formed relationships with editors, making it easier to submit and get published. But in the beginning, I really didn't have that to rely on, and I had to learn those best methods for myself. So let's go ahead and dive into those tips. The top magazines and blogs get several hundreds of submissions every week. So what's going to make your submission stand out above all the rest? Well, I find that it helps to think like an editor. And editors are looking for interesting stories, new trends, and unique one-of-a-kind details. Essentially things that are going to inspire their audience. So when submitting, you should be looking for the most interesting angle to pitch that wedding from and lead with that. For this shoot in Smitten magazine, my couple, Sybil and Eddie, really loved natural wood elements and geometric shapes. So when sending this to the editor, I described how they incorporated some of these things throughout their wedding day with things like this wooden ring box, their table numbers, which were custom done on wood cards, their custom ceremony archway that had these really cool wood honeycomb pieces that were filled with floral, their place cards for their guests that were done with their names in calligraphy and on wood, these adorable wooden boutonnieres that the groom and his groomsmen wore, and probably my favorite detail, this heart-shaped geometric wood piece that was done to hold their place cards. So as you can see, some of those features that I shared with the editor were kind of what made it throughout this submission. So that's what made that wedding just really stand out. I have one more example I wanted to share with you guys. This wedding was done with one of my favorite planners here in town, Tarot Scheme Events, and featured in the Knot magazine. And this couple also had really beautiful details throughout their day, but what really made this wedding different was the story behind it. Ethel and Jonathan, the couple, traveled with over 60 of their closest family and friends all the way from Hong Kong. So over 16 hours traveling for their destination wedding in Las Vegas. They also had really unique venues. Their ceremony was at High Nightclub, so yes, kind of cool, a nightclub venue that overlooked the fountains of Bellagio, and when they kissed, the fountain show went off. And then reception was at the really beautiful Four Seasons here in town, where they did an alfresco sort of thing and dined outdoors. The other thing that made this wedding really stand out was the couple's style. They had this really fun, like stylish, modern city vibe that they then also paired with kind of a romantic aesthetic. Their color palette was soft ivory and blush and green, and they had an abundance of floral. So it was kind of a modern romantic look, and that made it really different. Now, if you don't have these kinds of weddings just yet, remember every publication is different, so you definitely don't necessarily need lots of details. The kind of key to this tip is to just take what makes that wedding or shoot different and lead with that. And if you are wanting to get featured in kind of similar publications, I knew that the kinds of magazines and blogs that I wanted to have my work featured in, it definitely helped to have lots of details. So I have another video I'll link to in the description that's all on styled shoots, which is something I also did early in my career to help me book more of these kinds of really detail-oriented weddings. So if you're interested in that, check that out after this, and I think that'll help. So you want to think like an editor, but taking it a step further, editors are often trying to think like their bride or reader and thinking about what will inspire her. So for this, read submission guidelines, read the publication or blog, have an understanding of what they feature, who their audience is, what their audience likes, and the style of images that they feature. So for an example, if you shoot mostly warm-toned, more moody images, you don't want to be submitting to publications that feature a light and airy style of photography. Or if a publication features mostly high-end weddings, you don't want to be sending them DIY, more low-budget wedding details. You want to match the wedding or shoot with the publication, with the end goal being images and stories that are inspiring to their target brides. Now, I know this might sound kind of obvious, but I feel like a lot of photographers miss this simple step, and it goes so far with not only getting that submission published and accepted, but also then building relationships with those editors because they know that you're taking the time to really think about and select those weddings that are perfect for them. Know what kind of images the publication likes to feature. Every publication is a little bit different, but a good rule of thumb is 70% details and 30% people, including kind of a mix of both portraits and storytelling elements, such as first dance, the cake cutting, guests playing any specialty games at cocktail hour, or enjoying unique elements from the wedding, such as maybe a signature cocktail or ice cream station. These are unique details that may tell a more complete story and also serve as inspiration to other couples. Now, another tip for the details is to take horizontal and vertical images of each detail to give the publication options for their layouts. Remember, the easier that you can make things for editors, the better. And most editors also prefer natural light images. So ideally, you'll want to photograph these details during the daytime with clean, even light and non-distracting backgrounds. Allow yourself the time needed to be creative and do your best work by planning things out in advance and putting together a photography timeline. Now, you might resist this step if you've never done it before, but I promise it makes all of the difference by giving you a lot more control over things like lighting and having enough time for different parts of the wedding day. And if you're interested in how I plan for my weddings, I actually have a video I put together all on creating the perfect photo timeline, along with a free timeline guide. So I'll link that below. Editors will love you, and it will increase your chances of getting your piece published if you put in the work to already have everything all bundled up in a nice little package for them when submitting. Follow the submission guidelines to a T, and then when you're doing the vendor credits, make sure that it's a full list, including things like the dress designer, even the bridal shop, the bridesmaid dresses, robes if the girls are wearing special robes in the morning. These are all things that are commonly left out, and editors love when they're included because brides really love knowing where these things are from. I also recommend sizing things based on the publication. So for magazines, you'll want to send high-resolution files, and for blogs, I optimize based on the specs of that particular blog. So remember, you want to make it an easy yes for the editor. So you don't want to be sending images that are way too large or way too small. And also when sending to blogs, I don't like them resizing down my images because then the images might be crunched and not be in their best light. To make this process easy, I'll use either Lightroom or Blogstomp to render out several different sizes when initially preparing a wedding for publication. And this saves me time from needing to then go back later if I have to resubmit elsewhere. I think it's important to note that just because a submission isn't a right fit for one publication at this time, doesn't mean it's not perfect for another. So I usually like to have 2 to 3 places in mind that fit the style and vibe of the wedding engagement shoot or styled shoot that I'm submitting. Now, often bigger publications will require exclusivity, so in this case, I'll still submit to one publication at a time, but usually it will say in their submission guidelines roughly how long it might take to hear back. So I'll take that date, pad a little bit, and mark it on my calendar to do just a quick friendly follow-up before I end up submitting elsewhere. I also use my submission tracker tool for this because I'll usually have a couple submissions going at one time, so it'll help keep track of the different follow-ups I need to do and kind of statuses of my different submissions. This last tip is a little bit more mindset focused, but is perhaps the most important and is my favorite because as creatives, we're really close to our work and hearing no can be super discouraging. I know what it's like because I've been there. When I first got the courage to submit to my favorite publications, I was hit with several no's back to back. And I feel like it's enough to make anybody feel like giving up. But what I learned over many years in business is that even the perfect submission, there's a lot of other factors going on behind the scenes that we have very little control over, and these things influence editors' decisions. Things like editorial schedules, or maybe they're trying to feature more or less of certain colors or a particular kind of wedding. Or even that your wedding is on trend and they've accepted another similar feature already and don't want to duplicate it. So keep in mind that the top publications get hundreds of submissions every week. I encourage you to keep positive and keep trying, keep submitting. Some no's are going to be inevitable, but don't let that stop you from getting your work out there in the world. Your perfect bride is out there and she deserves to see it. So don't deprive yourself and don't deprive her from finding you. I hope these tips help for submitting your next wedding. I'll be sure to link my submission tracker in the description for you guys. It's a super useful tool to help guide you through the submission process and also keep track of those statuses and when to follow up or resubmit. If you enjoyed this video, I'd appreciate you showing some love by giving it a thumbs up. And question for you guys, what's your favorite blog or one that you'd really love to be featured on? Drop it below and Bella and I will see you next video.